Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
And welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today, right here with Ellen Kamhi, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. You can listen on air live or online at iHeart, Odyssey, TuneIn app, smart speakers, nccradio.org, or download our own WHPC app or on any podcast venue of your choice. Herbally Yours consistently brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, I'm so happy to have as our guest Mr. Calvin Barry Schwartz. And Calvin graduated from Rutgers University, so we are both alumni of that university. And he is a journalist for NJDiscover, as well as being a novelist. One book is called Vichy Water, and he's just about to release a brand new book called There's a Tortoise in My Hair, A Journey to Spirit. So Calvin has been very busy on air and online, and he has something called Conversations with Calvin, and We the SpecIEs, focusing on the diversity of content, people, and careers. And he also helped form a global group of environmentalists called Climate Optimists. Everything is not fine. So thank you so much for being our guest today, Calvin.
I'm thrilled to be here, Ellen. Really thrilled, primarily because we're both kind of health people as a pharmacy graduate. And more importantly, we are Rutgers alums. And I take that very seriously. I wear that very proudly.
I see that he even, listeners, so that you know, if we were showing video, has his Rutgers hat on. So that's really cute. But what made you move into being very environmentally aware? You know, actually, I minored in environmental science at Rutgers.
Wow.
And before that, I went to Cornell. I went to Cornell first, and I transferred to Rutgers because I could not deal with the snow at all. I mean, I couldn't do winter. I still live in Florida in the winter and New York in the summer. But Rutgers was an excellent school that still had really good teachings, but it was like a little bit more moderate, you know, New Jersey versus upstate New York. But I was minored in environmental medicine even then. And everything they're talking about, like the heat wave we're in and just every single thing that they were talking about, the coral reefs being destroyed, was discussed in the textbooks in 1970 when I was in college. So why is it till now and nothing has been done? We've just continued down that road.
That's a multitude of things to process. And in April, on April 22nd, 1970, I was just a regular guy, Rutgers guy, and happy-go-lucky, and I graduated. I went to, quote, the first Earth Day, and it impacted me on April 22nd, 1970, Ellen, so much that at that moment I realized, you know, you look at the Garden State Parkway on a summer weekend, it's bumper-to-bumper traffic, and all that exhaust is going up in the air. And it was all these little things that bothered me. So I became environmentally conscious from that first Earth Day and it's so interesting because I have a couple of little pamphlets that were passed out, and what things they were talking about in 1970 are the same issues, obviously, which you just mentioned. It's the same issues we have today. So nothing, well, the only thing has changed, it's a lot worse, and we probably crossed over the tipping point. But because you're a health person, a quick addition, by the time 1975 rolled along and I'm conscious about our environment, I realized and I read cows eat the grass and we water the grass and use tons of water. And then the cows eat the grass and then McDonald's makes those into hamburgers. And in the process of all of that cow stuff, that methane goes up into the atmosphere and contributes tremendously to global warming. So in 1975, in that commitment to climate, I did something I never thought I would do, and it's a health thing. I stopped eating everything with four legs. So I became not a vegetarian. I became a flexitarian, which means I do eat some chicken and turkey and fish, but nothing with four legs. And I haven't had anything with four legs since 1975. And I love hamburgers, and I love steak, and I love corned beef, but I won't eat it.
Okay, well, you did it more like a personal commitment, thinking about
Correct.
its relationship with the environment. What do you mean by we the species? And you spell species with a large I and E at the end.
Yes. 3 years ago, almost to the day, in the middle of the pandemic, my being a journalist for NJDiscover, and we had a cable TV talk show, and I was the co-host and the producer. But we shut down like everything else shut down, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And then something happened in August of 2020. It was like the confluence of a lot of different influences, and I decided I might as well set up and do some interviews on Zoom. And I came up with this idea. I pulled it out of the air. So it was called Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. And I capitalized the IE because IE means, for example, I guess in Latin. And the We the Species really refers to the fact at the end of the day, everywhere on this planet, we're one species. And it was a little bit of a play on the Declaration of Independence, We the People. I kind of used the Declaration of Independence, and I came up with the title, We the Species, that everything we do, we've got to stop with the wars, we got to stop with everything and work on fixing the climate because we really are running out of time. So that's what the species is. In my interviews in my channel, it's about as diverse as a channel can be. I pay only attention to one thing, people. And I've interviewed people now all over the world because we're one species. That's what it means, Ellen.
So, okay, so being humans basically is one
Correct.
species. Are the topics that you deal with, you have a YouTube channel as well as
Yes.
that, all of that is about environmental issues?
Mostly I gravitate towards environmental issues, but I also gravitate towards health. It's funny, you talk about Cornell. I just interviewed a professor emeritus at Cornell who wrote a book about Michael Hoffman, who wrote a book about our changing diet because things like coffee and chocolate might be gone in the very near future.
Wow,
Chocolate.
wow. Go into that a little bit more deeply because that will pique people's interest. What do you mean
Yeah,
by
I
that?
sure will. It's so scary. He's been studying this for 25, 30, 40 years. And his book, I'm looking for it right now. It's called Our Changing Menu. And it's Michael Hoffman, and he's been up at Cornell for a million years. And it's really scary because so many of the things we take for granted, food-wise, we're going to lose. I mean, example, Mexico is having a drought, as half the world is having a drought, and those hot peppers that go into making sriracha sauce, which everybody loves, it's almost extinct. They have no crop. So that bottle of sriracha sauce, which used to be like $1, in the supermarket, is now $30 or $40. Why?
Wow.
Because you can't get it. And in West Africa, there's such a tremendous drought. I just saw this morning. You got 275,000 acres that used to be farmland is now desert, and most of our chocolate, cacao, comes from West Africa. That's going to be gone because we have climate change, and coffee, that's going to be gone. So item for item for item, the things that we take for granted. I mean, I just saw that Minnesota is having a terrible drought, and corn, which used to be so prevalent coming from Minnesota, and the farms they're maybe they're able to retrieve 20% of their normal crop. Scary stuff. It is scary stuff. So listen, the headlines. We have to hide in the house. I'm hiding in the house today because we have smoke from Canada.
I know that smoke is a whole new thing, and it's almost like it's just slipped into our group consciousness, like it's normal to get the smoke report on the news every morning.
Correct.
And so now it's just there. It's just there. And I am a hiker. I hike at least 5 miles every day. And I also love it hot, which is why I live in Florida in the winter and here in the summer. So this kind of temperature, it's about, they're saying it's like 105 on Long Island in terms of how it feels today, 95 on the thermometer. I love it. I'm like, totally, this is great. I lived in a grass shack in the middle of the jungle for several years with no running water and no electricity. So that's my comfort level, but not everybody else's. But certainly those changes are vast, and they were all predicted.
Correct.
It's not a surprise. But what about, yes, we can say, oh my God, now you have to worry because you can't breathe because of the fires in Canada. But what should people do to be more active to perhaps, and can we even slow some of these influences? In Florida, the water is over 100 degrees. The first time it's ever been measured. That's going to be completely change the environmental ecosystem in the ocean in terms of coral, in terms of fish species. So what should people do to prepare?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because this morning I just interviewed this fascinating professor of philosophy, and he's also an AI genius, and we just talked about that. I was putting the interview together. I interviewed him a couple of days ago, and I was listening to it this morning. But anyway, we talked about what can we do? Can AI help us? It's semi-depressing because we can't, the species can't give up our cars and our coal and in our way of life. The world over, we can't give it up because it's so, a lot of the effort and energies is not going to be in stopping the temperature on Earth from going up 1.5 degrees in 2030, and that effect, which is what you're seeing, the water 100 degrees, we had hoped we could stop that, and all the UN climate meetings that they have, the IPCC, all that, we hoped we could stop that. We can't stop it. We can't stop it. So a lot of the thrust and the energy is not going to go into stopping it because we can't stop it. We can't stop our way of life anywhere on the planet. So it's going to go to sustainability. How do we live with it? And it's rather depressing. I guess if every citizen of the world reached out and cried out and marched, which won't happen, that we got to fix this. Tomorrow, we got to fix it that quickly. Then maybe we could change some things, but so really, I think the thrust going forward, because everything is business, everything is commerce, everything is capitalism.
Well, that's the thing, because when you're talking about cutting down on things that cause environmental damage, you're also talking about changes. But of course, we have a lot of stuff. But when you're talking about a country like Africa or the Caribbean saying, okay, well, don't build these modern conveniences, stay in your grass shacks. Where I lived in southern Mexico for 2 years in a grass shack with no running water and no electricity. It was extremely environmentally balanced. We basically went fishing and ate a lot of wild plants. Of course, I've written 16 books on that, wild edible plants that just grow outside. But then what happened in 1976, along comes a puff of soap suds floating down the river. Now, before that, the women would just pound yucca berries in the water with rocks to clean their clothes. Then all of a sudden, we outlawed, and when I say we in the United States, outlawed phosphate detergents and sent it to these villages all over the world, including the one I was in southern Mexico. And those women were so excited, they took this soap and pounded it on the rocks, say, que limpia, que blanca, it's so white, it's so clean. They never saw anything work this well in terms of yucca berries. And within a couple of months, it destroyed the environmental integrity of that water. It killed a lot of the fish that had been things that clean up the water, so it became very polluted, like instantly. So then I decided is where I had to leave and come back to civilization because I realized I have to be part of the solution. I can't escape.
There is no escaping it.
That's the thing.
There is no escaping it. It's a nightmare. I hope, and the professor I talked to said, AI is coming in, and maybe AI can help us in that area.
How would he suggest that?
Well, it'll come up. Listen, AI, in part, we had COVID to show the power of AI. We had COVID, and in a year's time, drug companies came up with, the mRNA, they came up with the RNA vaccine. And if you and I both remember, because we came out of that time period, polio was a scourge, and it took about 25 years to come up with a vaccine. And nowadays, with the help of AI, drug companies came up with a vaccine in a year. So the hope is, AI will do wonderful things going forward medically and hopefully environmentally. On a positive thing, I read, because I'm so conscious about the environment, that Iceland did an experiment. They put up a big, smokestack, and the smokestack went way up into the atmosphere, and it sucked out the carbon dioxide that was in the air over Iceland, and then it came when they took the carbon dioxide from the air, they mixed it with some cement thing, and they used it to make cement to build roads. And that's a wonderful idea. It's a wonderful idea. We may have to do that someday. The whole world gets together and start sucking out carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to reduce temperature. And part of that is AI, to come up with ways to do that.
And it cannot be fast enough. So I want to remind our listeners that you are listening to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. You can listen live online at nccradio.org or on iHeart or any other podcast venue. For more information on today's guest or topic, email us at whpc@ncc.edu or myself at naturalnurse.com. Today, our guest is Dr. Calvin Barry Schwartz, and he is an author and journalist and does a lot of great work in terms of informing people about environmental issues. And he also has a brand new book coming out called There's a Tortoise in My Hair, A Journey to Spirit. Calvin, what could that possibly mean?
Well, this has been it's been my life mission. The tortoise in my hair means the character of this book. When he was born, his father, because he was very slow to develop, and again, we're talking about 1945. He was very slow to develop, and there weren't ways and he was slow to walk, he was slow to talk, he was slow to think. So the father kept on yelling, "There's got to be a tortoise in his hair," slowing him down. And loosely, this is based on some of my journey. It's literally based on some of my journey. And the spirit aspect is I've been kind of gifted. I've had a lot of spiritual interventions, and I'm a regular guy. And when people get to know me, you can find me at Rutgers football games, Rutgers basketball games. I watch The Godfather, and I watch, I watch the news. I watch CNN. I watch From Here to Eternity. I'm a regular guy, Animal House, all that. But I've had some really fascinating, interesting spiritual things that have happened. So I kind of put it all together and decided to tell this story in a fictional kind of way. And there's a lot of Rutgers in there. There's a lot of health aspects. But Ellen, one of the main things I wanted to share with your listeners, and it's really important, is most of the things in my life. I've had 6 different careers after I turned 65. And you talk about herbal living. I've been taking supplements. I've been taking supplements since I studied pharmacology at Rutgers in 1969. So I've lived pretty much a really healthy life, a conscious life. And if you do the right things, the exercise, the supplements, the herbal, I mean, the whole package, my greatest productivity in my life began after I turned 60.
Well, that's you're saying in an inspirational way that people should.
It's very inspirational, and I want it to be inspirational. Listen, Rutgers asked me to teach 3 years ago. At 74, Rutgers came to me, and I became quota professor at Rutgers, teaching career explorations and networking to kids. At 74, when most people are hanging it up, and most people my age at 74, as you know, they're drinking prune juice in a rocking chair on the front porch. And I'm at my highest productivity level ever now in my late 70s. And there's a reason for it. It's the right kind of living, which you talk about, Ellen.
Well, yeah, that's what our show is about, although there's no guarantee, that's for sure, because I know a lot of people who lived a pretty rowdy life and there's still no problems, and the opposite also. I know a very many strict vegan juicers who are not making it as they hit their late 70s. Their mind is completely gone and they have no strength in their muscles. And so I've seen all kinds of combinations. I think that certainly eating and right living is important, and I think there's also luck and genes. Really.
Yes, I know the gene thing, and I'm very grateful for the gene thing. Genes maybe is 20% of the picture, and then luck is another 20%, and the other 60% is lifestyle.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. It definitely
does.
makes a big difference. So, but what is the book about? What does this mean? The name of your up and coming book. It's going to be released pretty soon, September 2023, coming right up. There's a tortoise in my hair.
All right, it's a tortoise in my hair. Journey Spirit it's called autofiction. It's like an autobiography of a character. It's a fictional character, but loosely based on some of my journeys. And it's because I have always been very slow to develop personally and my character. The character in the book, his name is Cameron Simmons, and he's always been very slow to develop. And it's how he's overcome this slowness and all the eccentricities and all the exigencies of life, his living and the changes he's made and how certain spirit has influence. It's a very interesting story. I mean, I could talk for hours on this, and I just felt it was important to tell this story because I think it's very inspirational.
So now I get the tortoise part. You did explain that very well, because
Yes.
it's a character that's like the slow and steady versus somebody who rushes ahead
Right.
too quickly. So it's like the
Exactly.
triumph of slow and steady.
Correct. Exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Then that's a great name. What is the best way if people want to check out some of these things? Like you said, you have many followers online. Is that on your Facebook or your Instagram or TikTok? Because each of them
everything.
have different names.
Yep, it's everything. You can first of all, YouTube. My YouTube channel is Conversations with Calvin, We the Species. I've done 265 interviews. I have a large presence on LinkedIn with over 15,000 followers. I'm Calvin Schwartz on LinkedIn. On Facebook, I'm Cal Schwartz, also easy to find. On Twitter, I'm Earthhood, EARTHOOD. On Instagram, I'm Cal_Schwartz. On TikTok, I'm at Earthhood, EARTHOOD. The novel will be in a matter of a week or two on Amazon and Amazon Kindle to begin with. There's a tortoise in my hair, a journey to spirit.
So, okay, so those are all different ones. And by the way, on our show here, which is Herbally Yours, we archive it, and on the archive we have links to all of this. So is there one of these places, if someone goes to, that sort of then has links to all those different venues that you present on?
You know what? Not yet.
Okay, well, that would be a good thing.
That's a good thing. And there's no, but if you go to each one, LinkedIn has just
The LinkedIn, that's what I'm saying. Like I
my
have
email.
Right.
And
I have
LinkedIn
on my
has
website.
My email.
Yeah.
Facebook has my email.
Right.
I mean, I'm easily seen.
Okay.
And easily
Maybe if they
tracked.
just put your name in it also, if they just put in just your name, Calvin Schwartz, they may find all these different things. Because what I do is on my website at naturalnurse.com, I have a link so people can visit each one of those things. Facebook,
I'm building a
Instagram,
website.
this, that, and the other thing.
Funny you mention that, because this is all overwhelming to me, this whole novel thing. I did it 17 years ago. So I am building a website which will have everything.
Yeah, that just makes it easier.
Yep.
Once somebody finds you and said, I really like, the presentation that he has and the guests that he has and, all this information that you've been accumulating all these years. So thank you so much for being our guest today on Herbally Yours.
Thank you, Ellen. By the way, I truly, I was honored and I was really looking forward to hanging out with you because we are Rutgers alums.
Great. It's true. And thank you, listeners, for tuning into Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC, Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamhi, the Natural Nurse, at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.